You've probably blamed a bad grade on the teaching method. Like, I'm a visual learner, and that professor just lectured. There's no way I could learn from that. But here's the problem. Decades of research show that matching your study to your style doesn't actually help you remember any subject that you are studying. But don't worry, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 3 science-backed strategies that actually do work. And if you stick around until the end, you'll even get something for free. While you may not have heard the name before, I guarantee you have heard of VARK learning styles before. Visual, auditory, reading/writing, and then kinesthetic. The idea sounds perfectly logical. Every person has their preferred way of receiving information, so if you study in your style, then you'll actually learn better. Visual learners should use diagrams, pictures, that type of thing. Auditory learners should listen to lectures, and kinesthetic learners should do hands-on activities. Now, we all have our preferences, but there's a critical difference between preference and performance. Just because you prefer to learn something some way does not mean that's actually better for you. Which leads us to what researchers found when they actually put this hypothesis to the test. In 2008, cognitive psychologists examined the evidence. Their conclusion? We found virtually no evidence for the interaction pattern required by the learning styles hypothesis. They looked for studies where visual learners learned better from pictures while auditory learners learned better from sound, and they just didn't find it. A 2024 meta-analysis combined 21 studies with over 1,700 participants, and they only found a tiny average effect, and even that was inconsistent. Only about 25% of the tests showed the pattern that learning styles theory predicts. So the researchers basically concluded that even if it works, it's too small and too rare to really justify changing your entire study pattern around it. And this holds true even in medical education. One study gave 426 anatomy students the VARK questionnaire at the start of the semester, and nearly 70% of the students didn't even study according to their supposed style. And the crazy part is the ones who actually did stick to their study style didn't perform any better than the ones who didn't. Another study tested medical students learning to place an IV catheter. Half were taught in their preferred style and half in the opposite. And the thing is, their success rate was again essentially identical. So the question becomes, right, if this doesn't work, why do we all think that it does? When you label yourself a visual learner, you might avoid lectures or podcasts, even when they could teach you something valuable. What's happening is you're sitting there thinking, I can't learn this way, instead of, I need to learn how to engage with material in this format. And this is really problematic when it comes to anatomy. Yeah, you need to see diagrams, but you also need to listen to pronunciation and read clinical descriptions and practice with your hands. A med student who thinks they're only auditory and tries to learn dermatology from podcasts is going to struggle, like a lot. You need to actually see the rashes if you're going to be able to treat them. Learning styles can also waste time. Teachers spend hours creating materials for different types of learners, and that's time that could be spent on proven methods that help everyone. And students who do poorly might blame a mismatch in their learning style instead of addressing the real problem. Maybe they need better strategies or more background knowledge or just more practice. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, what actually works? The research consistently shows that combining modalities helps everyone learn better. And it's called dual coding. When you pair words with pictures, you create 2 representations in your brain instead of just one, and that gives you multiple ways to retrieve the information later. This probably isn't all that surprising, all right? But what we're saying is you need to be able to recognize the words and you need to be able to recognize it visually, because then just the concepts are going to match better. Again, this isn't about matching learning styles, it's about matching the content. And this is exactly why we built Kenhub the way we did. Every topic has articles, video explanations, anatomical atlas images, and quizzes with active recall and spaced repetition built into it. It's that dual coding principle in action because you see, anatomy is inherently visual and spatial. You need diagrams to understand 3-dimensional relationships, but you also need verbal explanations that clarify what you're seeing and why it matters. Physiology involves processes over time. Animations with narration work beautifully because they show the sequence while explaining the mechanism. Clinical skills require hands-on practice because your hands need to develop muscle memory and tactile discrimination. Again, if you're focusing too much on this not being your preferred method, you are not understanding the requirements of that information and what you're going to have to do with it. So instead of overly focusing on what your preferred learning style would be, you need to just figure out what's the best way to actually learn this information so that it, for practical reasons as well as for the exam. Right? So if you're using an atlas to learn about the heart, go ahead, read the description, but also watch a video. Draw the structures yourself and explain the pathway out loud to a study partner. That's not catering to a specific learning style, that's crafting a multi-dimensional approach that allows you to access that information from multiple angles. So the question probably then becomes, well, all right, well, how do I convert that to long-term memory? Well, the answer is most definitely to not just read or watch the videos passively. You need to test yourself, spacing out your practice, and making connections. It's called active recall, and it's one of the most powerful techniques you can use. So instead of just rereading your notes, go ahead and close the book and then try to pull that information from the depths of your memory. Use flashcards, take practice quizzes, or teach the concept to someone else. Every time you retrieve information from memory, you strengthen that memory. It's like doing reps at the gym, but for your brain. And then you have spaced repetition, which is another proven method. Don't cram everything into one night. Spread your studying over days and weeks. Come back to the material after you've started to forget it. That retrieval is exactly what makes the memory stick. You want to ask the why, the what, and the how all together. So don't just memorize that the kidneys regulate blood pressure. Understand that they do that through the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. That deeper processing creates more connections in your knowledge network. These strategies will work regardless of your supposed learning style. So a visual learner who never tests themselves will forget the material just as fast as anyone else. And an auditory learner who does use spaced repetition will remember more than someone who crams, no matter the format. Remember, it's not about the modality, it's about the strategy. When you combine these strategies, you don't just memorize anatomy and physiology, you actually understand it and remember it long term. So here's what you do. So I want you to just pick something in your book, right? So I opened a page to the femur. I want you to look at it, and then I want you to close your book, and I want you to try to recall that information. I want you to grab a blank piece of paper, and I want you to try to draw it. I then want you to try and explain it to someone, right? We really want to start putting in these reps right now, and you are going to be blown away by how quickly you're going to start to retain and truly understand this information. When you're ready to build this into a complete study system, try this free anatomy study unit on directional planes. It combines videos, labeled diagrams, and active recall quizzes to give you that multi-pathway learning that we just talked about. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you'd like us to discuss in future videos, but thanks for hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.